What got you to Africa in the first place?
I'd been hearing about this tribe of people called the Hadza over and over and over. And they were this fascinating group of people for me. They were just this tribe that were some of the last remaining hunter-gatherers left on the planet. There's not many left, probably numbering in the thousands of true, close to being hunter-gatherers left on the planet. These are people who don't farm. They just hunt every day and they gather food. They don't even have dwellings that are permanent. They have thatched huts they make and then they break them down. They have camps. They move around this area in Africa called Lake Eyasi. Another group in Africa is called the Ikung, which is in Namibia and Botswana and South Africa. But I couldn't go to those places because of COVID restrictions, but Tanzania was open. So I just decided now is the time. I want to go visit the Hadza. I've never been to Africa, but I went to Tanzania. You fly into right by Kilimanjaro. You go to this town that's right by Lake Eyasi. So it's like 26 hours of flight to Africa. Then you have to drive 4 or 5 hours from your flight in Kilimanjaro. Then you have to drive another hour and a half every morning through the bush to like find them in the jungle or in the bush.
Oh, wow. There. Yeah, in the bush.
Yeah. So you're way out there. And then it's incredible. Like as soon as we got to meet them, they were super welcoming and they just let you be a part of the tribe. And we got to hunt with them. We got to hang out with them. We sat by the campfire at 6 a.m. and 7:30 at night. We got to sing with them and just eat with them. I mean, I ate crazy stuff with them. So it was just incredible to see like baboon brains. Would you do it?
I mean, I'd probably try about anything. It would be a mind over matter thing.
It actually was really good. I'd had brains before, so I didn't think it was going to be bad. Afterwards, people were all worried, prions, but there's never been a case of prion disease that actually jumped from.
What's prion?
So prions are, you ever heard of mad cow disease?
Yeah.
This is like a semi-infectious particle of protein. So people have this long debate, are viruses alive? People also debate, are prions alive? Prions are just a piece of protein. It's an amino acid sequence that makes up a protein. And when it gets into your body, it causes other proteins to misfold. So it causes this chain reaction, this oftentimes aggregate reaction in the brain, which can cause protein misfolding and neuronal damage. There's a disease in humans called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which is associated with certain genetics and certain proteins, and that is a prion disease. And a variant of Creutzfeldt-Jakob is mad cow disease. So in Britain, a number of years ago, there was an outbreak of this mad cow disease where by eating the neural tissue, the brain, the spinal cord, or even the meat of some of these cows, people could get infected with this prion. So it caused this huge stir. This probably is the type of thing that happens in livestock because of crowding, right? Factory farming and the wrong type of treatment of animals. And I think that in this situation, they were actually feeding pieces of cows to other cows. So the reason it was spreading was because the cows were eating other cow parts like waste or compost from other cows, which is probably not a good idea. Cows probably shouldn't eat other cows, especially if they're in isolation and in these cordoned off, areas where they're in sort of factory farms. So that's prion disease. And people believe that HIV is a virus that probably jumped from primates to humans. So whenever you talk about eating baboon brains, people think like HIV and prions, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So then we're going to back up a leap to go, why was it that you felt like this driving force to go to Africa and experience something more primal and something more natural and something that I'm imagining was different than what you were experiencing at home? Was there an impetus? Was there something were you in a situation that was totally different? Were you, I don't even know what your job was before. Were you sitting at a desk and you're like, screw this, I need to get on my surfboard and I need to go do other things? Like, why did you end up wanting to really go to Africa, especially at such an interesting time in life where everybody is, scared of everything? You're like, I need to get out of here.
Have you ever seen the movie Back to the Future?
Yeah.
Did you ever want to go in the DeLorean? Did you ever want to go in a time machine?
Dude, I always want to go in a time machine. I am always wanting to go. At all times, I want to I want to experience this sort of time as an illusion thing and jump timelines and dimensions. And yes, all the time.
So this is the closest thing I've ever done to being in a time machine. And that's, I think, what's interesting about anthropology and studying groups of people who live differently than we do in 2022. You and I know what it's like to live in New York City or Chicago or California or Texas or Costa Rica in 2022. But what was it like to live in Africa or any of those places 50,000 years ago or 75,000 years ago? And this is the closest that I thought I could get to a time machine. These people, hunter-gatherers that still live on the earth, live so much differently than we live. It's the closest thing to a time machine. It's not a perfect time machine. The DeLorean's broken a little bit. They've been influenced by modern humans, but they actively avoid modernity in their life. They know about cell phones. They see our cell phones. We show them pictures of rhinoceri on the cell phone, and they get all excited and they want to go hunt it, but they don't want to leave their lifestyle. They live the most similarly to the way that humans lived 50 to 75,000 years ago of anyone on the planet right now. And it's, just miles different than we do today. So they're so much closer to the way that humans lived 75,000 years ago than anything else on the planet. That was what I wanted to see. Where did we come from? That's the question that I was looking to answer. Where did we come from? And there are many people who believe that Hadza are the direct descendants of Homo sapiens. That Homo sapien, there's different, we don't exactly understand where Homo sapiens arose. And there's a lot of different lineages of the Homo genus. And there's, all sorts of Neanderthals and Denisovans and, different peoples. But Homo sapiens, we believe that our species arose in this region of Africa. This sort of, the Olduvai Gorge has footprints of pre-hominids that we believe were the predecessors of Homo sapiens. So many people believe the Hadza are direct descendants of Homo sapiens, and this is perhaps the closest thing we will ever come to understanding where we've been as humans. So what you see there is fascinating. It's just a time machine, and that's the way they wear animal skins, and they wear shorts that are dirty that missionaries have given them, but they wear animal skins for shirts, and they hunt with arrows that they fashion by hand. They use bows that they carve by hand from the trees in their area. And we saw them shoot birds, and they, obviously killed a baboon with us. And then they make a fire with no lighters. They use wood, and they rub two sticks together. They have a bow drill type of method, and they also spin the wood in their hands, and they get an ember, and they use that on tinder. They make fire in 2 minutes or less. They smoke the animal, they burn the hair off, we cut into it, and we're eating the organs. And then, so it was just fascinating, because one of the questions that is so fascinating to me as a physician is there a program written into this Homo sapien DNA that gives us an idea of the way we're supposed to eat? Is there a program? Other animals pretty clearly have species appropriate and species inappropriate diets. Do you have dogs? I do. Yeah, so I have dogs too. And I've been around other dogs, and dog farts are a bad thing, but my dogs don't really fart. I never smell their farts unless somebody feeds them something like a cookie or a hot dog bun. I was doing a reel for 4th of July where I was throwing hot dogs in the buns, saying I wasn't a fan of hot dogs and the buns and ketchup. And of course, bullshit. One of my dogs just... It's bullshit. Yeah, they're bullshit. They're bullshit. So one of my dogs, whose name is Ribeye, runs into the jungle and just goes crazy. He eats those hot dogs. He'll eat junk food if I give it to him, right? So he'll eat ketchup and hot dogs, and he's eating the buns. And then he has horrible gas, and he farts all over the place, and his skin doesn't look as good. So this is just a roundabout way of saying that I think that we see this in animals, and I think it's really fascinating, but we don't really think about this in humans. The question is there a species appropriate diet for humans? And that may be as large or as small as we want to define it. Maybe a species appropriate diet for humans is much bigger than what I'm imagining, but that's what I'm really trying to understand. Because when I went to medical school and residency, and before medical school, I was a physician assistant. So I had lots of years of medical training, and I sort of did medical school 1.5 times. I've been around a lot of the medical world for a long time. Never was I taught to ask this question, how the heck is a human supposed to eat? It's almost like we assume we know how we're supposed to eat. But to me, that's the most fascinating question that no one really has figured out an answer to. And then the corollary questions are different people different? We're all Homo sapiens, but is Danica going to eat differently than Paul? Or, are some people going to do better with more plants, or some people going to do better with less plants? And then the deeper questions for me as a physician that are super fascinating are around how many of the chronic illnesses that we accept as inevitable in humans, whether it's heart disease, dementias, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, neurodegeneration, arthritis, whether it's rheumatoid or osteoarthritis, thyroid hormone problems, whatever autoimmune disease or chronic illness you want, diabetes, obesity, how many of these diseases that we accept as inevitable are preventable or reversible if we can align the diet with what our DNA program is expecting? Like if there is actually a user manual written into our DNA as humans, into what we are supposed to be eating.
Well, what have you figured out?
Could you heal humans, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this is fascinating. I ask this question all the time too. And I test on myself all kinds of things, you know? I mean, probably the worst test I did was trying to eat less animal meat. I mean, I just truly felt bad for the animals. It was an ethics thing. It was a compassion. It wasn't about not liking the taste of it. I mean, freaking love steak, love lamb, love duck, love elk, you name it. Like I'll eat all of them. But I started eating, you know, I would have more fish. I would have a little bit of fish at night, but pretty much all plant-based the rest of the day. And then you're substituting. And when you look at the label of some of the bullshit fake meat, I mean, it's terrible. I'm like, wait, what's worse? I don't know. God. And then I roundabout thought about, well, what's the value of protein? You know, do we have to have protein? Do we have to have that much protein? Can we get the protein from in other ways, from plants or other things? And so I went through that, but there's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt that I feel the best on high fat animal meat. No doubt. And so I abandoned, I'm totally okay with it. I mean, do I want to see the truck driving down the road that's full of cows heading to a slaughterhouse? Absolutely not. And I don't, I feel so bad. I was watching a NASCAR race and the winner gets a lobster and this thing is gigantic. And I'm just watching it going, oh. And my mom was like, what is it? The lobster? I'm like, yeah. But I know that it's, you know, it makes me feel better. So what tests have you done on yourself? I think you were vegan at some point in time, right?
I was vegan about 15 years ago for 7 months. I had 20 to 25 pounds less muscle mass on my body. So I'm like a moderately muscled male. And you can imagine me with 20 pounds less muscle. It was really skinny. I couldn't get a date. You know, I would like ask a girl out and she would say, "You're too skinny." And that was almost when the light bulb went off. Evolutionarily, my body is like, "You're an idiot. Start eating meat. Like you're never going to procreate or even get to practice if you don't eat some meat, dude. Like this girl is saying you're too skinny." So I was like, okay, but yeah, I had a horrible vegan phase. It was really bad gas. My GI symptoms were out of control. You couldn't be in the same room with me when I was vegan. And then, you know, and I had my own autoimmune issues. I've had my own autoimmune issues throughout my life. Mine are not as severe as many people's are, but I have eczema and asthma, which is a sort of a family of conditions known as atopy. These atopic conditions. So I have atopic dermatitis, which is these red itchy bumps that'll come up on my wrists and my elbows and my knees. And when I was in medical school at times, I had eczema so bad, I was doing jujitsu, it would get infected, it would cause impetigo. So it's not a bad thing in general, but it can be a bad thing for a lot of humans. And people are very self-conscious about their eczema. People can get it on their face and on their body. It doesn't look good on your skin to have eczema. And asthma is a lung condition, which is fairly serious. And these are autoimmune conditions.
Oh.
And growing up, my dad is a doctor. He's an internist. My mom is a nurse practitioner. And neither of them were taught to think, is our son eating something that is causing this eczema for him? As a kid, I had this. I had these little itchy bumps, right? I'm eating regular pasteurized dairy. I'm eating processed food. Even though my family is a medical family, we were eating TV dinners. I was eating seed oils. I was eating processed sugars. We'd go to McDonald's. And instead of thinking, my incredibly intelligent and super kind father, instead of thinking, maybe we should feed our son differently, they give me inhalers and creams.
Right.
And this doesn't solve the problem at all. This is what I've always been trying to figure out for myself and why, I don't know, I think growing up in a medical family, you get fascinated by these questions of how humans can live better. I'm not as much obsessed about living long. I just want to live well every single day. I want the quality, and I'm not willing to sacrifice the quality of my life experience any day for some empty promise of longevity, especially when that empty promise of longevity is hard to prove. There's a lot of people out there now saying, if you do this, you'll live longer. Well, it's like, okay, maybe in 70 years, we'll find out if that's true or not, right?